Yeah, good evening, everyone. So last session we learnt about classes and class members. So we are discussing about common JS module, and in common JS module system, how to export and require method. We learnt about classes in a module system and class members. In the class members, we have a property, accessor, another, these two we learned yesterday. So what is the purpose of property? Properties are used to handle data. In a class, data is stored in properties. We store data in property. What is difference between storing data in property and variable? Properties are mutable, and these variables are immutable. Yesterday we showed the concept how they are mutable. And yesterday we discussed two more things, static and non-static members. Static and non-static members. We discussed about another one is what? Private members. Static, non-static members and private members. What are static members? So static members use continuous memory. Non-static uses discrete memory. So static private members are defined by using static keyword, and private is defined using hash prefix. What is alternative of giving private members? In early versions, older versions, how the private members are created? Weak maps. By using a weak map. By using weak map, we can create the private members. So, but now in modern JavaScript ES6 and higher version, we just use the hash for that private member. Next, we discussed about how accessors are used. Accessors are used for controlling the properties. How they control the properties? By handling read and write operations. We control read write operations using accessor. We have two accessors. So one is getter, another one is a setter for read and write. So these are all the concepts we discussed about module, about classes. JavaScript object-oriented programming is very much used in Node.js you will use. In future you will use in Angular also if you are learning Angular. In React you will not do that. In React you will use lot of functions. But Angular and other technologies like server side, you have to work with a lot of classes. But in React, you will work with majority functions. They don't prefer using classes. Actually, React also uses classes, but it recommends that better to make it lightweight, fast, you use functions. For example, when you see this Angular, this is the official Angular website. So in this Angular, suppose I open docs. And components. You see here the components, generally whatever components they create. Yeah. In Angular, you will see the components are created by using what class? They are using export class means export class means they are using ES module system. Am I right? ES module uses the term export. They are using ES module system. So you see here they are using the all classes only. Components are designed by using what class? But you see React people. So React, you see the documents and you will see that React is using functions very much. It is using function. Angular completely uses majority of classes. And you can see here it is using functions. Everywhere it is a function. They are using functions. For every reason they are using function. So it depends. So server side in Angular like technologies in future, you have to majority work with classes. But in some libraries, you have to work with the functions. So two topics you must be very perfect in JavaScript for your future technologies. One about functions, another about class. Even in interviews also, majority of questions are related to functions and class. They will ask about functions, about classes. 80-90% questions in JavaScript will be related to function and class. Means OOP concept, function and OOP. So not just knowing the concept, you should know some updated concepts also. Because in recent generation of interviews, they ask latest topics. That means suppose a person is already experienced. He already knows JavaScript, working on JavaScript from several years. Then if they are conducting interview to such people, so in advanced technology, they will ask latest new concepts in JavaScript. From ES6 to latest versions, what new things they are using regularly, those they will ask. Such concepts I explained here. Weak map, private members, static, non-static members. So earlier we don't have them. We need to know about them. Next, now after understanding properties and accessor, we need to know about methods. Next important, we need to know about methods. So in class, we have methods. Actually, data is defined using the properties and functionality is defined using methods. That means a method defines the action to be performed. A method defines the action to be performed. The action to be performed. Method is mutable. Method is mutable. method is mutable. So it can be void type or can return a value. It can be void type or can return a value. You learnt all about functions, same like functions we have methods. But the declaration style is different here. Actually, it can be parameterized or parameterless. It can be parameterized or parameterless. So we can have parameters or without parameters. Parameterized or parameterless. Just like functions, you learned function can be parameterized or parameterless. Function can be like void or return. Same concept here. So method, how you configure the method. So generally in a class, we have a class name. We have a method. Method can have parameters and method can be, this is with the void. You can have a method. So this is parameterless. It can return value. So you can have void and with return. So you can configure with parameters, without parameters, with void type or with return. Right. Now let's see one example here, how to define. So in our application, I am using this is server app. So we are creating one class. Yeah. So we created a class that is product. In this we have name, that's a property. And we have price, that is also property. And quantity is a property. Total, we want to calculate some total. Then it is a method. Methods are defined just by using, they are defined just by using a name. It is defined just by using a name. Parameters are optional, parameterized or parameterless. Actually, this is a void method. It is a void method. So how we can do that? We can make it return this dot quantity into this dot price. That means it will return a number. So now the total is not void type, it is what type? Number. Now we have another method, print. This print method have to print all details. Console.log. So we are having name and this dot name. We have price. So this dot price and we have what else? Quantity. This dot quantity and total, that is this dot what total. Total is a function. Now we want to access the members let obj is equal to new product and obj dot what print. It is going to print all the details. So let's open this for your understanding sake. I am opening in a command prompt. That location I opened in a command prompt, and node, what is it? app.js. It returns the value. Now before printing, I will make the object quantity obj.quantity is equal to 2. Then automatically it will print the result. The quantity 2 and total how much it will do. So the functionality inside a class is defined by using methods. Methods can be void or methods can return some value. Method can be parameterized, parameterless. Same your function concept. So no need to repeat that. Function concept means you already learned. What is it? You already learned function can have rest parameters. Function can have multiple parameters. Function supports spread operator. Same concept here also. We can define one parameter, multiple parameters, rest parameters, everything is same. So data is in property and the logic is in methods. What functionality we have to do, that is defined using methods. So controlling properties is done by accessor. Logic is defined by using methods. So this is a simple example of how you can define method, how you can configure the methods. Next, once you know how to define the method in a class, you have another important constructor. So every class have a constructor. Every class have constructor. So what is this constructor? What is the role of constructor? Actually, the constructor role is generally constructor is responsible for instantiation. Constructor is responsible for instantiation. That means it is responsible for creating an object for class. Instantiation means creating object for class. Creating object for class. So after creating a class, how you can access the members of class anywhere? You can access the members of class outside the class in two ways. If the member is static, then directly we can access by class name. If it is non-static, then we have to access by using instance. We need to create one object. Through that object, you have to access. So if anyone asks why we should create an object and why static doesn't require an object, static doesn't require an object. You cannot access static by using object. You have to access by using class name. and non-static members are accessible only through object. Why you cannot create an object and why you cannot access static members using object? Why they are accessible only with class name? And why non-static requires an object? The answer is in yesterday's class only. We discussed that. Actually, static means the memory allocated for the member when the class loads into memory. When the class loads into memory, the memory is allocated and the same memory is used anywhere. Across all the requests, we use the same memory. So every time allocating memory is not required for static. When class is loaded into memory, that memory is directly accessible. But what about non-static? When class is loaded into memory, the members are not accessible. You need to create an instance of that particular class. Through that instance, you have to access the members. So actually, this is memory. Generally, what happens is when you have a class, some class name. In this class, you have non-static and we have static. Static and static, yes, some 0 like this. We have non-static like n is equal to 0 like this. Now what happens is when you load this class into memory, that means a memory is allocated and in that already s is available 0. N is also available with 0. Now when you want to access them, because s is continuous, then what you can do, we can access just by using s. Because s is continuous memory, every time you have to just access by using what? S. But what happens when you want to access n? What we have to do is, in this again, you need to allocate some memory. In this again, you need to allocate the memory. In this memory, you have to load the n. In that memory, the n is loaded. And you need to access this memory. Directly, the class memory is not accessible. We have to create another memory. Through that memory, you have to access. That is the reason we are using let obj is equal to new name. Am I right? That means this new is allocating a new memory again. In that memory, it will load all these dynamic members. Now these dynamic members are accessible by using what? Object. Now tell me, is this n accessible directly by name? Directly by name, it is not accessible. It is accessible only through what? Object. Only through object. Now, through object, can I access yes? You cannot access yes because in that memory, s is not loaded. Only n is loaded. Na? Understood? Na? In this memory, s is not loaded. Na? Only n is loaded. That means now you can access through this memory only which one? N. You cannot access which one? Yes. So static members are accessible directly by what? Class name. And non-static members are accessible through instance. Now what is the problem here? You finished using the object. That means the memory is deleted. The memory is deleted. That means this memory is erased. When you create another object, then another memory is allocated. That is the reason you saw yesterday, every time n value was 0. Na? You remember? Na? That means every time n value was 0. Now, who is responsible for creating this memory. That is the job of constructor. That means what constructor will do, it will construct a memory for that class. Through that memory, you can access the class members. But through that memory, you cannot access static members. You can access only non-static members. That means what constructor will do. Generally, if you ask this question to Java, .NET, C++ learners, what is purpose of constructor? If they haven't properly learned the definition, they will give an answer that constructor is used for initializing values. They will tell you that constructor is used for initializing values. If it is used for initializing values, then it should be called initializer. Why they are calling constructor? They are using the word constructor means it is responsible for constructing something. So what it is constructing? It is constructing an object for the class. And through that object, you can access the members of that particular class. Static members doesn't need an object. They can be directly accessed. But non-static members needs an object. And the object is created by whom? Constructor. Constructor allocates the memory and it will construct an object for the class. It loads all the members into it. Through that you can access. So that means here, so constructor allocates a new memory for class and loads all its non-static members. Object uses the constructor reference memory and allows to access the dynamic members. Dynamic members means what? Non-static members. So creating object for a class is done by constructor. And why you need to create an object for class? In order to access the class related dynamic members, the class related non-static members. So you cannot access the class non-static members directly. Only static members are accessible directly. So object will not allow to access static members. Static members. Right. So every class have a default constructor. Every class have a default constructor. That means internally every class have a constructor. Every class have a default constructor. And what is its job? Constructing an object for the class. Now the question is, if every class internally have a constructor, default constructor means it is internally configured. Already every class have a constructor inside. Then why we have to create another constructor? We are now talking about we can create a constructor also. We can configure a constructor. If already there is a constructor, why to configure a constructor? For example, in JavaScript, you usually have form. You know the form element by default have a submit mechanism. Am I right? Form is a generic element now. Form by default have submit and what reset. By default it have submit mechanism. Then in JavaScript you will have a on submit event. On submit event indicates what action to perform when form is submitted. If form already have submit, why you need on submit? On submit is to tell what actions to perform when form is submitted. Even you don't write that, by default form will submit. Then why to write again on submit? Question understood? By default form have submit. It can handle submit. Then why to write submit again? If already it have a submit, why to write submit again? Because form have a default submit. That default submit will do some default functionality. I want some additional functionality. That means while submitting the form, I want some additional functionality to perform. Then that additional functionality I have to manually write. Then you have to write an event called as on submit. Even you don't write on submit, form have a submit. Then why do you write on submit again? Because I want some additional work to do. Already it is doing some work, but we want some additional functionality to perform. That additional functionality we have to configure, so we have to write on submit again. So same concept. Every class have a constructor. Then why you need a constructor? Every class have a constructor. Then why you need a constructor? Because the constructor is doing some functionality. Default some functionality. I want some additional functionality. Already what it is doing, it's okay. Let it do. But I want some additional functionality. That means at the time of creating an object, I want some additional functionality to perform. That functionality I can give by writing an explicit constructor. Explicit constructor means external constructor. Internally it have a constructor, but externally we are writing again a constructor to give some additional functionality. You can give in a method na. If you want to give a functionality, you can give in a method. Why you have to give in a constructor? You are understanding the point? We can create a method. Method will do the functionality. Then why we have to do a functionality using constructor? Because difference is method we need to call explicitly, but constructor is implicitly called. That means automatically constructor will execute. Method we have to call it, but constructor implicitly executes. It is a special type of method which executes automatically. Method will not execute automatically. Method we have to call. For example, see, suppose we are having a class database. Now this database class have to communicate with database. So communicating with database means it have to do actions like insert. It have to do action like update, like that. That means it should do actions like insert, update, and delete, like actions it have to do. Now what happens is we have a insert object. What this insert object have to do? It should insert data into database. But before inserting, one more extra work it has to do is first it should able to connect with database. That means insert object first should connect with database. After connecting, it should insert. Similarly, update object have to connect with database and then update. Delete object have to connect with database and delete. Now this connection is to be done for every object mandatory. Then if I give this connection to a method, then what should happen? If I give in to a method, then what should happen? Every time for every object, we have to call a connection. First connection, then insert. First connection, then update. Connection, then delete. But if I give this work to constructor, what it will do? At the time of constructing object itself, it will connect. That means I don't need to call the connection. Automatically connection is called whenever an object is created. While creating object itself, it will connect. We have to just perform which operation? Insert, update and delete. For every object, connection is automatically performed because you given this work to constructor. What constructor will do? It will perform the functionality at the time of creating the object. At the time of creating object, it will do the functionality. Then you don't need to call it again and again. Automatically, a constructor is called implicitly. Let's see this practically, how it works. So, what is the point about constructor here is default constructor. If you want any explicit functionality at the time of creating object, then if you want any explicit functionality at the time of creating object, then you can configure using constructor. Actually, constructor is a special type of method, or people call it as subroutine. Subroutine means it is a special type of method that executes automatically for every object. So here JavaScript constructor will not have a name. JavaScript constructor will not have a name. It is anonymous. So it is defined by using constructor keyword. Actually, in OOP languages, constructor have more functionalities, more concepts, but in JavaScript it doesn't. Because JavaScript is not a completely OOP language, so you should not compare the constructor of JavaScript with other language. Because in Java, C++, C#, all languages, constructor name will have same name as class name. But here it is different. Actually, in other OOP languages, constructor can overload. Overload means you can have multiple constructors, but not in JavaScript. JavaScript constructor cannot overload. In other languages, constructor can be static. They can be defined with access modifiers like private and all. But here it is not allowed. So here constructor have limited job. It is not just like the constructor that you have in other languages. So the main concept is same. What is the main concept? It is used for constructing an object. But several concepts are not like other languages. So let's see, actually syntactically, class have a name and it have a constructor. We can define constructor like this. It is anonymous, it doesn't have name. It can be parameterized or parameterless. It can be parameterized or parameterless. Parameterized or parameterless. So it cannot overload and cannot be configured as private, static. Here we have limitations for that. Overload means multiple constructors with different signatures. That is not possible here. So that is parameterized or parameterless overload. You see, now we will create one example. So how the constructor works. So some more points are there. So here we are creating a class. The class name is database. In the database class, now we are configuring here a simple insert method. And what this will do is console.log. So record inserted. That is the option. We have delete method. Console.log record deleted. And you see, we are having another method called connect. This connect method have to use console.log connected with the database. That is the message. Okay. We will create an object. Some oracle is equal to new database. And observe, when I define this database, automatically database is having a constructor. Class is having a constructor internally. This constructor is responsible for allocating memory and loading all the members into that memory. You can access by using this reference. So you see, as I told you, constructor is internally present and it is anonymous. Anonymous means it doesn't have a name. That is the reason we have to use how to call anonymous function. To call anonymous function, we use IIFE pattern. You learned that functions, anonymous functions are called by using IIFE. What is IIFE? Immediately invoked function expression. That is IIFE. So now you see beside the class name, you use empty parenthesis. That is the constructor. That means if anyone have a doubt like why class is written like a function. Class is not written like a function. Class is written like class. But class have a anonymous function which is constructor. After the class name, you have to call the constructor. And this is not necessary if constructor is not having any parameters. If constructor is having parameters, then this is required. Otherwise, it is not required. Even you don't give, constructor will be called. Even you don't give, constructor will be called. Even you don't give that, constructor will be called. Let's see now Oracle. Through Oracle, I am using what? Insert. But actually, before inserting, I want it to connect. Before updating, I want it to connect. But connect is not working because connect I given to a ordinary method. Na? If I give any functionality to ordinary method, it should be called manually. We have to call manually. Now we are giving this work to constructor. We are not giving to any method, we are giving to a constructor. Now see what will happen if I give to constructor. Now what happens when I execute? It will execute that constructor. That means what is the speciality of constructor? Constructor is a special type of method that executes automatically for every object. That executes automatically. So you don't need to call. Now tell me what kind of work you will give to constructor. Kind of work constructor. If any work that need to be performed at the time of creating an object, then you can give that to constructor. While creating itself, it will do it. So if you want any work to be manually executed only when you want it, then give it to method. You want it automatically performed for every object, then give it to what? Constructor. And remember, suppose I am accessing Oracle dot delete. Now will it connect again? It will not connect again because already it is connected. That means constructor will execute only once. Only once for whom? For an object. That means if you say delete, then what it will do? Will it connect again? No, it will connect for insert, same will continue for delete. That means how many times a constructor will execute? Only once. For every object, constructor execute only once. You create another object, constructor will execute again. So constructor is a special type of subroutine. That means it is a special type of method that executes automatically for every object. And important here is a constructor. A constructor can execute only once for object. Can execute only once for object. So you cannot call again and again. So method can be called again and again, any number of times, but constructor is only once. And you see now, if constructor is parameterized, for example, you see here, into this constructor, we are asking DB name. That means database name. We are asking database name. Then what happens is when you give the database name here, which database, the DB name we will use here. Now, whenever you create an object, this constructor is expecting name. Now it is mandatory to pass the value. Why? Because it is parameterized, and you know that in JavaScript you can't ignore parameters. Every parameter is required. So if you don't give this, now it will return undefined. That means if constructor is parameterized, then we have to pass the parameters while allocating memory for that class. While allocating memory for the class, you have to call the constructor, and into that you pass the database name, Oracle. That means now what it will do, it will say that connected with Oracle database. Constructor can be parameterized. It will simply say connected with Oracle database. Suppose you are changing anything like MySQL, then it will say connected with MySQL database. That means if a constructor is, remember, in interviews for learners, they ask this question: if constructor is parameterized, when to pass? Because constructor automatically executes. When to pass value? Do you know what answer many people give? They give answer like at the time of creating object. No, that is wrong answer. You should not tell that. It is not at the time of creating object. It is at the time of allocating memory for object. Because you are using new class name. Na? What is new class name? It is allocating memory. It is allocating memory. While allocating memory, you have to pass the values. You should not say while creating object, which everybody does actually. Java, C++, all these people, they tell the same point. They say that if constructor is parameterized at the time of creating object, we have to pass. That's wrong. Not at the time of creating object, at the time of allocating memory for that object. That becomes a wrong statement if you say creating object. It is allocating memory for object. So that is important here. So parameterized. So here, if constructor is parameterized, then the values are passed at the time of allocating memory for object. So where obj is equal to new, so here you have to pass the value. Constructor parameter can handle any type of value. Any type of value. So it can be a primitive type or a non-primitive type. That means it can be number, string, boolean. It can be array, object, anything. You can have multiple parameters. You can have rest parameters. You can use spread approach. Anything is possible. right? So here we are having an example. In this example, we are configuring a constructor with parameters. So in other programming languages, constructor has so much more concept. Here only limited. So we can't expect more about constructor in JavaScript. Actually, constructor is having more concept. In JavaScript, it is limited. So I told you already, you cannot overload, you cannot have a private or static constructors, they are not allowed. So the concept is actually, you see, this constructor I given hash. Hash is to configure like a private. And you see that, so it is, constructor is a reserved word. You cannot apply anything on it. Suppose this method is using an hash that is private. That is private. It is accessible. It is accessible inside, but not accessible outside. That means here I am running this now. You see it shows an error. It says that unable to find insert because insert is not accessible outside. It is accessible only inside. We made it private in access, but constructor cannot be like that. Constructor cannot be like that. Constructor actually can be private. In other programming languages, they have that facility. Why they give private constructor? So many reasons will be there. For privacy, security, they can prevent inheritance. They can prevent creating objects by having a private constructor. That means if they have a private constructor in a class, that class will not allow any extensions. It will not allow to extend. It will not allow to create an object. So technically, that is not possible at all in our JavaScript. This is only the point of constructor. One more rule is there about constructor, which you will learn in inheritance. While working with inheritance, one more rule you will understand about constructor. Let's see what is it. Actually, this is all class members. So what are the class members? Class members, we are having a property, we are having an accessor, we are having a method, and we have a constructor. That is the con. So a class can have only these four as members. So now, once you know this, let's see here. We have more about classes to learn. Now you need to understand how to achieve reusability, reusability and extensibility. How to achieve reusability and extensibility. This is a key feature of OOP. Already I explained the history. So for example, in general interviews, what they do is, actually in MNC level interviews, when you see MCQs, multiple choice questions, they conduct multiple choice questions, exam interviews and all. What they do is, actually, they give a question like object oriented programming. They will give choice. They give choices like polymorphism, polymorphism. So abstraction, code separation, and code reusability. Like this, they give choices and you have to choose one answer. What is correct about OOP here? All are correct. OOP supports all of them, but you have to choose only one. That is how they confuse you in their interviews, especially MNC interviews. You will feel like you know everything, but you can't answer. Why? Because generally what we expect, one question, for that four choices means one is correct, others are wrong. But actually they have all four correct. If all four are correct, which one I have to choose? For example, just like suppose you say selectors, CSS selectors. We have type selector, ID selector, class selector, and you have like some attribute selector. Now, which one you will choose? Why ID? Because you learned the CSS rules. In CSS rules, which one have more priority? ID. Understood? All are correct. But you know the priority, you learned it in CSS. ID have first priority. That means ID is the answer. Now tell me in OOP what is the answer then? The primary aim of OOP is code reusability. All others are later, but the primary aim is code reusability. That is what you have to answer, right? That means usually our interview questions will be like that. Syntaxes also. They give code syntax. In that code syntax, they will ask which syntax is correct. Actually, all syntaxes will work, but one is first priority recommended. That you have to choose. That is where many people face problem in handling these questions, interview questions. So, what is the primary concept of OOP? The primary concept of OOP is reusability. Easy to reuse, easy to extend. So how you can achieve this? In how you can achieve? So reusability and extensibility are primary features of OOP, object oriented programming, are primary features of OOP. Are primary features of OOP. So you can achieve achieve spelling, what is, you can achieve by using two techniques. What are those two techniques? One is aggregation, another one is inheritance. Aggregation and inheritance. Code reusability, code extensibility can be achieved by using two techniques, one aggregation, another one inheritance. What is reusability means? Without rewriting the code, we must able to use the code. Extensibility means without disturbing the existing, we must add 8 new features to it. That is the point actually. So what is reusability means? So what is the concept of reusability? Reusability allows to reuse the code without rewriting. Extensibility allows to extend and add more features without disturbing the existing. Extensibility allows to extend and add more feature without disturbing the existing. And you can achieve that by using aggregation and by using inheritance. So let's see what is this aggregation. That means how this aggregation works. Aggregation and inheritance works. Actually, for that, we are taking some example here. So we have a class, and class we are having some app. We are building some app. Suppose we are building an app like some HDFC bank, and it is version 1, first version. That means they are building an app which version is 1. In that you have a personal, and that is nothing but personal banking services. That is the first concept. They have a personal banking services in that first version. Now, without disturbing this, we want to add some more features to it. Without disturbing how? Without disturbing, we want to add some more features. Now the question is, in that case, you develop a new version 2. In this version, you put the new feature. New feature like I will give like an credit card. Credit, this is nothing but credit card services. This is the new feature. But this new feature, this new version should use the existing features now. And the question is, why you are developing a new version? Why can't you modify this? Suppose in this we are using a print method. What is the print method? It will print the details. Console.log. What it has to print? This dot what? Personal. It will print that sentence. Here also we have print. What is it? Console.log, and it will print this dot, that is credit. Okay. Now the point is, why you are not modifying the version? Why you are developing a new version? You can directly add this also here only, na? Why you are not doing it? Why you are developing a new version? If anyone asks you this question, why a software new version is released, why can't they modify the version? Do you know, for example, actually JavaScript version ES6, ES7 next version, ES8 next version, ES15 is the latest version. Am I right? In every version they are adding new features. Do you know in CSS, the latest is CSS. Actually, CSS started 1, CSS started 2, CSS started 3, Then later they decided that there will be no more numbers, CSS, CSS. Actually, officially, there is no CSS version number now. CSS, CSS. You should not say CSS3, CSS4 like that. Because many times in resumes, people write, I have knowledge of CSS3. Officially, there is no number of CSS. That means whatever latest they release, they put in the same name. What is it? CSS. CSS don't have any versions. CSS is CSS. Now, why can't everyone do the same? Why can't everyone do the same? Just JavaScript, JavaScript. Why you have ES5, ES6, ES7, 8, 9? Question understood? Right? Why can't they simply put only one name? Why they need to release versions? To achieve, versions are designed to achieve a concept called backward compatibility. To achieve backward compatibility and to achieve multi-versioning. That is actually called multi-versioning, right? And it is main concept is backward compatibility. Backward compatibility means, so now you are using Windows 10. The latest Windows is 11. If anybody still using, some people are still using Windows 8. If I ask, why don't you use Windows 11? It is latest. Why don't you use Windows 11? Then you can ask, why should I use 11? I will ask, why should I use 11? Then he will say that there are some new features in Windows 11. You will say that I don't want them. I don't want them. So I will not use that. I don't need them. Then for me, the older is enough. But because to get a new version, I may need new memory, more memory. But I don't have such memory, then I will not use your new version. It may have good features, but I am not interested in them. That means even there are latest versions, companies still use the old versions. You are learning latest version of software, but when you go to companies, they are still using old. They will say that we are not using this, we are using old version. That means we develop multiple versions to achieve a concept called backward compatibility. For example, you have to upload a file. To upload a file, there are two facilities. You can drag and drop, file will upload, or you can click upload button, select file, attach. Which one is best? Which one is best? To upload file, you have seen two things, na? Drag drop or browse and select the file and upload the file. Which one is best? Drag drop is easy. Then why they have given alternative? Because drag drop is a high feature which requires more connection speed, high connection speed. If your internet speed is low, then drag drop cannot work. Then the website will tell you that I see that your connection is slow. You use an alternative method. What is that alternative method? Browse, select and upload. So why we have to design a new version? To achieve backward compatibility. That means even you have a new, people will not use new. They will use only old to achieve that. Now in the new version, I want to use the first version features here. If I want to use first version features in second version, there are two techniques. One technique is you create a connection between two classes. You create a relationship between the two classes. then automatically the members of this class are accessible here. But creating relationship is always risky. If I create relationship, same name member comes here also, then it will suppress the parent. It will suppress the parent. Then issues will come. So without creating relationship, we must able to access members of one class in another. That is called aggregation. Aggregation is a mechanism of accessing members of one class in another class without configuring any relationship between classes. How that is possible is, in the second class print method, we will create an object for first class. And through that object, we can access the print method. Then the first class members are accessible in second. That's simple. This mechanism is called aggregation. That means now, is there any relation between first and second version? No, there is no connection, but the members of first version are accessible in second. How you are doing that? Through an object. This mechanism is called aggregation. So what happens now? I will create an HDFC is equal to new HDFC Bank version 2. I will create an object for second version. If I create an object for second version and through that I access print method, then you will see that it is going to print both details. The members of 1 and members of 2 are accessible. That means now you are creating an object for the second class and it have access to the first class also. How it is accessible? By using an object. This mechanism is called as what? Aggregation. Aggregation means accessing members of one class in another class through an object of that class without configuring any relationship between classes. That will avoid ambiguous issues. That means same name member issues will not be there. And there will be no relationship. Without relationship, we can access the members. You can create so many. For example, I am creating a class HDFC version 3. Version 3 is having loans. Then here personal and car loans, something like house loans. And here we have a print and which is printing console.log. It is printing this loans. I want this version 3 to use both first and second version features also. Then what we have to do, here we create an object for which version? Version 2. And through version 2, we access version 2 print method. And version 2 print is already having access to version 1. That means you create an object for version 3 and automatically you will get all the features. Version 1, version 2, version 3. This is reusability and extensibility. We are reusing the members of one class in another. We are extending the classes without any relationship between classes. This is one mechanism of reusability. We call this as what? Aggregation. So aggregation is nothing but it is the process of accessing members of one class in another without configuring any relationship between classes. Without configuring any relationship between classes, it uses an object to object communication. Technically, it is referred as has a relation. It is technically referred as has a relation. It is technically referred as has a relation. So that is aggregation. So that is one concept of inheritance, one concept of reusability. So this is example. This is an example for, this is app.js. That is an example for aggregation. Now, similarly, how inheritance works, that we'll see in next session. So next session, we will finish the OOP concept. Now we will start working with node related objects and classes. What classes node is having, how these server side classes work, what is their purpose, everything we will learn. That means you will learn about node classes, node objects, and how to handle them. Server side objects that we'll see on Monday. Okay, Monday will continue, right? Yes, Harsha, what is your doubt?
So it's not about out. I'm not able to join the classroom.
Admin, contact admin, he will send. Admin
So,
Manoj, he will tell you. Manoj.
and sir, where will I get this number? This number?
How you joined this class? Who sent you this link?
Sir, I got a link.
Huh? Who sent you
Sir,
this link? The Naresh IT team, na?
no, sir, got the link.
You
The
got the
class
link.
link.
How?
Yeah.
How?
I personally WhatsApp her, but now she is not responding to my messages.
You send a message, they will, okay? Or contact, I will give a number of our admin, you contact him, okay?
Okay, sir.
Yes, Nagalakshmi, what is your doubt? Yes, Kishore.
Hello.
Yes.
Yes, Kishori this side.
Yes.
So my doubt is regarding setup. So when we set up the node application, that time you asked to select that, like the question was like, where does your code run? Okay. So
Ah,
you asked to press the press bar to select both, but
hmm.
it was not happening. So by
No, no
mistakenly I
problem. No problem. You can run that again. It will ask same questions again. No problem. You run the command again. It will overwrite. Okay.
oh okay fine.
There is no problem. Huh?
Okay, thank you.
Ah,
And one more doubt, sir.
ah,
So actually, I made some website using HTML, CSS, and little JavaScript I have used. Like I hosted it on a GoDaddy I purchased the domain and hosted it on the same
ah, hmm,
GoDaddy only.
hmm.
But now it is taking time to load. It is very slow.
So you should ask
So,
GoDaddy people.
like, is there any
Why?
reason like
If GoDaddy is slow, what should I do? You better take another cloud account,
okay, fine.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure. And
Yes, Pramod.